Though prequel projects are still a relatively new concept for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'd be more than happy for the studio to keep making them as long as they take notes from Sebastian Stan. The actual timing of the franchise got complicated by the snap, as the MCU now runs on its own timeline that doesn't line up with real life. This has meant that the franchise rarely dwells on the past, since the events of the MCU keep moving forward. Marvel's first venture into prequels was with 2021's Black Widow. Taking place after the events of Captain America: Civil War, the film being a sequel meant that they could still elaborate on Natasha Romanoff's character even after her endgame death. Considering that several of the original Avengers have had their arcs wrapped up by now, a prequel would offer them a way to return to the screen without tarnishing their ending. One MCU star has been particularly vocal about their openness to a prequel, and I think Marvel should take him up on his ideas. Sebastian Stan has 2 Bucky Barnes prequel movie ideas. Bucky's backstory spans several eras. Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes standing in front of a motorcycle on a desert road in Thunderbolts. Actor Sebastian Stan has previously shown interest in other potential Bucky Barnes projects, and he recently gave some ideas on some possible prequels for the character. At a panel during Comic-Con Liverpool 2024, Stan gave 2 specific ideas related to exploring Bucky's past as himself and as the Winter Soldier. Read Stan's full quote below. Bucky is a character that we feel like we know, but in reality, we haven't really seen much of his actual history play out on screen. If there was anyone who'd deserve a more in-depth project from Marvel, it'd undoubtedly be him. Considering how much of a fan-favorite character Bucky is, there would definitely be a market for his prequel projects. He is one of the most highly anticipated parts of the upcoming Thunderbolts * film for fans, and they are always craving more Bucky content. He has such a rich backstory that is split up between several eras, which makes for no shortage of content. Whether Marvel chose to do something focused on Bucky during the war or a Winter Soldier-centric story about his brainwashing at the hands of HYDRA, Stan has given the studio some great potential ideas to play with. Sebastian Stan's Bucky and Steve Rogers prequel movie preserves Endgame's ending. Captain America already got his perfect ending. The Bucky and Steve Rogers duo is one that fans would love to see on screen again, but it just wouldn't make sense for where the MCU timeline is currently at. While the multiverse saga has given the studio an easy way to bring back characters, it also comes with huge risks. Just because the multiverse is the obvious easy answer doesn't mean it's the right one. Steve was sent off in Avengers: Endgame with his desired happy ending, and it would completely ruin the momentum of his story if Marvel had Chris Evans come back as some gimmicky variant. Instead, doing a prequel would preserve the legacy Evans built for Steve in Avengers: Endgame while also giving Bucky a chance to reunite with his best friend once more. When we are first introduced to the duo in the first Avenger, they are already best friends. We have no real idea how they became so close or how they even met, only how their relationship progressed from there. Considering what we know now about Steve and Bucky, it would be an interesting concept to see how it all started back in the 40s. The Winter Soldier and Black Widow prequel movie needs to happen. Black Widow has had the MCU's only prequel so far. Black Widow gathering intel in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. One of the other ideas that Stan mentioned was a prequel focusing on Bucky's time as the Winter Soldier. We got a bit more lore about that era during the Falcon and Winter Soldier, but it was more so focused on Bucky's guilt and subsequent redemption. A project where the focus is solely on his time as a weapon of HYDRA would work perfectly now, because we know who Bucky truly is. He is not the villain that was introduced in The Winter Soldier, but rather a victim of it all. This Bucky prequel would also give room for another MCU character to make a return. Black Widow already had a prequel with her 2021 solo film, but it was more so just a missing story that was meant to be told earlier on in the timeline. We now know more about her Red Room trauma, but as Stan suggested, it'd be great to see exactly how Bucky helped her become the Black Widow. The fact that Bucky and Natasha crossed paths before is the perfect opportunity for content, and it'd help expand on Natasha's The Winter Soldier story. Will Marvel actually make any Bucky Barnes prequel movies? The best time would likely be now. Bucky Barnes aiming his gun in Thunderbolts * trailer. Based on where the MCU is at now, it seems pretty unlikely that the studio will make a Bucky prequel movie, let alone 2. However, we can still dream. Marvel is always monitoring what does well with fans, and they surely know how popular of a character Bucky is even a decade after his initial introduction. The studio has been taking some bigger risks with the type of projects they're creating, and some of them, like Loki and Agatha all along, have greatly paid off. If there's any character that Marvel should take a chance on, it should be Bucky. Any potential Winter Soldier prequel plans may also be hindered by Stan's age. Marvel's slate is pretty full at this point, so even if they were to go with his ideas, a project wouldn't get made until a few years later. By that point, Stan will be considerably older, which will make it even harder to pull off a prequel that's meant to take place in Bucky's younger years. No matter whether Marvel decides to take inspiration from Stan's ideas or not, they can at least learn that there is in fact a market for prequels in the MCU.